It's the 6th Sunday of Easter. Have a seat. Have a seat at home if you're standing. So it's the 6th Sunday of Easter. It's now been 8 Sundays since we were advised not to meet as churches on Sundays. And we were advised to go home and stay there. Last Monday, these restrictions were lifted slightly, and today we've opened our church doors tentatively as we lead this communion service. Next week, some of you will begin to venture out as we keep this worship space as safe as possible, with strict physical distancing and hygiene measures for the 10 who are able to meet in worship. It's a time when many of us have been feeling a bit alone. So it's so good that Jesus meets us in today's gospel with powerful words of reassurance. He says, "I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you." He promises that even though he is going away, he will give us another counsellor, a comforter, to be with us forever. The Spirit of truth, the Holy Spirit. What a wonderful promise, and one so needed by the disciples who were facing a future without Jesus. These chapters, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17 in John's Gospel, are the last words of Jesus to his dear friends before he would be walking out to prayer and agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then walking on to arrest and crucifixion. These were his last words to them. He was young. He was probably only about 33. Probably as old as a lot of our children. Jesus was young. He was healthy. He was always walking everywhere. He was fit. He had great friendships. He had deep and strong friendships, a really good group of friends who walked with him wherever he went. Great relationship with his mother. Everything about him was healthy and full of life, and yet he was about to die. He knew the disciples, his group of best mates, could barely face the future without him. And so he spends this time telling them how to cope. This Jesus was the Son of the living God. And he would rise from the dead, and he would ascend to the Father, to God. The living God is Jesus' Father. And together he and the Father would send the Holy Spirit for us, for his disciples. I suspect his disciples were wondering, who is the Holy Spirit? We don't read much about the Holy Spirit in the Gospels, do we? Who's the Holy Spirit? Does the world see or know him? Jesus says not. The world doesn't see or know the Holy Spirit. But he says that we, his followers, the followers of Jesus, do know him, the Holy Spirit. We know him. For he lives with us and in us. Do we know him? Do we know the Holy Spirit? Apparently, Jesus says we do. But I'm sure if you ask the average churchgoer, the responses would vary. Not many people have the real sense of Jesus' presence by his Holy Spirit. And Jesus knew that we'd have trouble with this. And so the closing verse of the passage helps us. Jesus says, "He who really loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him, and I'll show myself." Jesus is going to show himself to us if we really love him and receive the Father's love. He'll show us the Holy Spirit. He'll reveal himself to us, He'll manifest himself to us. And Jesus says, I will let myself be clearly seen, and I'll make myself real to those who really love me and those who receive the Father's love. What a beautiful promise. Isn't that our first commandment, to love the Lord with all our hearts and souls and minds and strength? Isn't that what we're doing? Are we receiving the Father's love, just sitting and enjoying the ways he loves us? If we're doing those things, Jesus will reveal himself to us. That's what he said. That's what he promised. Because we long for this reality, don't we? A real reality of knowing the love of Jesus. It seems to hinge on really loving Jesus and the fact that we are so loved by the Father. That's a fact. How deep the Father's love for us. We are definitely not orphans. We have a Father who really, really loves us. And it seems that this love is poured on us by the Holy Spirit. God's active presence here on earth, poured on us. Times past, we've sometimes been a bit too busy to receive that, to sit in that love, to bask in beautiful sunshine, God's love. Not so busy at the moment. Maybe we can do more of that. Receive God's love. How often do we just stop what we're doing and let God love us? There's a beautiful story about a 97-year-old lady who, when asked how she spent her days, said, well, get up in the morning, have my cup of tea, wash my face, brush my teeth, sit in my chair, and let God love me. What a beautiful way to spend our days. Let God love us. Breathe in and breathe out. Not too much though. That all-encompassing love of God. We are not orphans. We're not alone because God is with us. And he loves us so much. Perfect love drives out all fear. John wrote that in one of his letters in 1 John 4:18. The Apostle John, the one who leaned into Jesus at the Last Supper, couldn't help but speak over and over about Jesus' love. John knew Jesus' love. He speaks about it in the Gospels, in his letters. He even refers to himself in the Gospel, as much as he can, as the disciple that Jesus loved. Whenever you see that, John's talking about himself. That's who he knew himself as, the disciple that Jesus loved. He felt so loved. And he loved Jesus so much that love was the language he spoke, the Apostle John. And if he knew fear, he knew that the incredible love that he knew from God and the love that he felt for Jesus was the one thing he needed to drive out all his fear. Perfect love drives out all fear. Well, how about us? Coming out of lockdown is a bit scary. I was driving here today. It's a good 50 minutes and I thought I'm getting further and further from my lovely safe home there. Coming further away. It's a bit scary. Leaving the house is a bit scary, isn't it? We've got all our things there. Once we go out, we've got to come home, sanitise, do the rest of it. Many people will be experiencing fear at the thought of leaving their cosy four walls at the moment. And in South Gippsland, as winter approaches, that's not an unreasonable fear. We often huddle down, don't we, in winter and hibernate from about June to August anyway. It's cold out there. There's bugs everywhere. Not only COVID-19, but flu and every other virus. But of all the winters that we have faced, I'd say this is the one which comes with the most precautions. In the doctor's surgery where I work, they say, we're not seeing any colds, we're not seeing any flus. People are taking great precautions at the moment, way more than they ever did before. So for all the winters, the most precautions are in place. So it's great to know, isn't it? There's physical distancing, 1.5 metres, 1.5 metres, 1.5 metres. We've all got hand sanitizer everywhere. When we touch that, we're spraying it. We're coughing into our elbows, so there's no bugs going to get out there. And we're self-isolating. This is for a lot of us coming out. We'll go home, we'll wash our hands for 20 seconds, probably 20 minutes. I've been jumping in the shower after shopping expeditions some days. So when we go home, we've had a safe place. There's so many precautions in place, and I think that's a really healthy thing to do, not just with COVID-19, but on into the flu seasons every year. Let's take those precautions, keep our bugs to ourselves. I hope we'll be a lot more conscious as a society once a vaccine is developed for next year's flu season, and we will be much better at working out these things of social hygiene. And they're very good practices that we're learning. And thankfully for South Gippsland, there's only been 5 cases at this stage who have all recovered. And the good practices are well in place. Fear doesn't have to rule our lives. If we abide by these measures, fear doesn't have to rule our lives. There's even toilet paper back on the shelves. Don't worry. Perfect love can drive out fear as we live in the assurance that Jesus walks every step of the way with us, helping and guiding our lives right now through all this. Surrounded by such love, we can rest in knowing that He won't lead us out if it's not right for us. And He will be with us as we stay in until the time's right to leave. And I pray that it won't be fear that holds us back, but it will be a real sense that Jesus is leading us in and Jesus is leading us out. He'll be helping and guiding our lives. I'm very aware today that we have gathered, and I know for myself I felt that was a real call of God to come out. It was so nice sitting in my dressing gown, 9:30 every Sunday, and watching the service. But God is calling, and it's not just me. And I thank God that He does lead us, and He doesn't just leave us to our own ideas and fears. And He will lead us in, and He'll lead us out. Be so sure of that. A lot of the Christians back in times of previous pandemics and plagues have stepped out. Now the world may have said in fear, don't do it. But God may have said, look, you have an elderly neighbour who just needs you to ring her, say hello, write a letter. Do it. God can lead us in places where our fear would never lead us. Listen to Him. He loves us. He wouldn't harm us. And He wants us to love others at this time. Next Thursday is Ascension Day. It's Ascension Thursday this week coming up. It came quickly, didn't it? When was Easter? I don't know. When was Palm Sunday? And here it is, Ascension, which means in 10 days from Ascension, it'll be Pentecost Sunday. So there's nothing to stop us praying at this very significant time for God to lead many hearts and lives to follow Jesus. There's a global prayer movement, and we've been part of it in the last 2 years, and it's called Thy Kingdom Come. So there's nothing to stop us huddling in our upper rooms, in our homes, and praying to God to move powerfully by His Holy Spirit at this time. He can get through those walls, and He can touch lives, and people can come to Him. Nothing to stop us praying for those we love to come to Jesus. On Pentecost Sunday, wherever we are, that's in 2 weeks' time, There's nothing to stop us sitting expectantly, waiting for God to move in us and through us by his Holy Spirit, to pray, to worship, to proclaim Jesus in ways that we have never experienced before. There's nothing to stop the movement of God's Holy Spirit in our lives and the lives of those we love. Who does God want you to pray for? Who's on your mind? Who would you love to see saved by Jesus? Who will you be praying for from Ascension to Pentecost? Think of 5 people that you'd like God to save their life, save their marriage, save them from their addiction. Who is it that you'll be praying for? 5 people in those 10 days, Ascension to Pentecost. Maybe you long for God to manifest himself to you. You want to know the reality of that love of God. And you want him to help you in your prayers and your worship. Well, you've got it now. Give him the time and space wherever you are. He's with us. He is with us, and he hasn't left us orphaned. So as we conclude this reflection today, Lorna's going to play that first verse of how deep the Father's love for us. And let's just sit and receive that love of God and reflect on it as we listen. Thank you, our loving Father, for your deep, deep love for each one of us, your children.